I'm here. I have to prepare. One moment. Are you here in Kub? Lucy is here. Lucy is alive. But Lucy has to prepare. Hold on. Lucy had to brush. Wait, why Lucy? What do you mean? Hello, Big Jerry. I paused the movie. Oh. Like a smurf. Fake like Hal Parker criticized me for having the bad layout on the politics channel. This is my politics thing. So I will never make that mistake again. Okay, this is my layout for politics. Oh my god. We have stuff to talk about today. Hasan Piker has opened his mouth about Ukraine again. And it just pisses me off. Pisses me off to no end. So we're gonna do a whole thing about Hasan Piker. I've been really wondering if this should go to Flop or on the other channel, or this is politics, but you know what? Screw it. I'll just for a moment I'll pretend this is serious politics and I'm gonna address this on the politics channel, I guess. Maybe Hasan Piker's thing will give this channel a boost. And then maybe things will go well. We're gonna do news, we're gonna do Hasan crap, and then we're going to jump onto the other channel and do slop. Because I have to nurture both the channels because both channels are seeing some good activity. So I cannot be negligent on any of the front, you know? You know what I mean? That I have to be a hard worker bee. Hasan being run on Ukraine, who could have guessed that the campus streamer would side with Russia? I know, right? Oh, God. That is so annoying. And many people will just defend him reflexively because he is the big leftist streamer, because he's the big leftist pundit. Your title reminds me of Bill Wirtz. Wait, why does it remind you of Bill Wirtz? Who is Bill Wirtz? An American musician. Is he at least a good musician? Is Bill Wirtz at least a good musician? China's whole again, then it broke again. Yeah. Am I going to be the only person that's gonna be talking today about the new unfair and ridiculous ban on trans people? Am I going to be the only person talking about how depressing the situation for trans people is again? The Olympics. Have you heard about the Olympics? If you haven't heard of the Olympics, then we're gonna talk about the Olympics today. It's gonna be a mess. It's gonna be a mess, but you know what? It is what it is. The world hates trans people. Actually, that's incorrect. The world doesn't hate trans people. The world hates trans women in particular. Actually. The biggest hate is directed towards trans women, usually. But, you know. What should I start with? Should we wait for more people to come? Oh, I have to. Do I have any? I have a shirt. Shirts are good for cleaning glasses. It's ridiculous. I swear to God. Is there any other news that I wanted to talk about? Oh yeah, might as well. Okay. Might as well start with some warm-up news. That's not in the title. You wanna talk about genocide denial, Holocaust denial? People are denying. Okay, there's not that much Holocaust denial, to be fair, but at least in this case, the genocide denial is being punished. I don't know. Sexing the body. I am sexing the body. I know a mostly nice trans woman. Wait, I am just mostly nice? Wait, who made genocide denial? Our favorite Polish politician. Grzegorz Braun. Who's a one-eyed pirate now. Hold on. I'm gonna put the browser on screen. You don't know Grzegorz Braun by now? The famous Polish politician? I think he had some surgery thing and is wearing an eye patch now. Because he had some eye trouble. Punished Brown. Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah, literally. He might be punished, but he is not done. Not by a long shot. Polish far-right MEP stripped of European immunity over Holocaust denial. Because you know what? Holocaust denial is not something that is, generally speaking, super well accepted. Not yet, anyway. This is him, see? One-eyed bandit, a pirate, classical pirate. The European Parliament has again, goddamn, again, stripped Polish far-right MEP Grzegorz Braun of his immunity, clearing the way for Polish authorities to prosecute him on several charges, including Holocaust denial. Yeah, because it's several charges. Grzegorz Braun has been busy doing a lot of very weird and questionable things. Assaulting people, assaulting things, genocide denial. It's been crazy. The Polish prosecutor's office requested that Braun have his legal protection removed in relation to two cases. Okay, we're going to be talking about those two cases now. We're going to be listening about those. Well, not listening. You're going to be listening to me talk about those two cases, but I'm going to be reading about them. First, for alleged Holocaust denial, after the politician claimed in a radio interview that Auschwitz with its gas chambers is unfortunately fake. Oh, okay. I guess I visited a fake facility. I saw fake hair. I saw fake belongings to fake people. I visited the fake gas chambers. It's all fake. It's all been my hallucination when I actually visited the death camp as a teen. He also faces charges related to the destruction of Ukrainian, EU, and LGBT plus flags in the lower house of Poland's parliament. The same. Yeah, he is insane. I think the most insane and unhinged thing that he has done in his career was to tackle a Christmas tree because it had Ukrainian decorations. I kid you not. He threw himself at a Christmas tree because it had some vaguely Ukrainian flag themed decorations on it. He decided to defeat that tree. That Christmas tree could not be suffered to exist. He decided, no, I will kill this tree. It's Ukrainian tree. Stop the Ukrainization of Christmas. Polish MEP Krzysztof Śmiszek of the New Left commented that Parliament had no doubts about granting both requests, stating anti-Semitism, violence, and discrimination are not European values, thank God. At least, maybe Europe has learned a lesson after a long time of accepting these things without question. Now it's time for the Polish prosecutor's office and swift court action, he added. I wonder if Brown is actually going to get prosecuted and punished for being such a dumbass, open dumbass. It's ridiculous. He also has some connections to Russia, by the way. He's been meeting with Russian agents that has been expelled from Poland. And we don't know what he did with those agents. Brown has already had his European parliamentary immunity waived in connection to other charges, including turning a fire extinguisher on Hanukkah candles in Poland's parliament. This happened when I was in a mental hospital, actually. This happened during my stay at a mental hospital. And assaulting a gynecologist in the southwestern town of Oleśnica. That was a crazy case. We could make a whole big segment about that case of the gynecologist being assaulted by Grzegorz Braun. The politician heads the far-right opposition Confederation of the Polish Crown, the most radical, insane far-right party that is straight up pro-Russian. He ran in last year's Polish presidential election, finishing fourth in a result many saw as surprisingly strong, given the controversy surrounding him. Yeah, I think that's because of the controversy that he has finished fourth, because unfortunately, radical populism is popular, radical populism gains traction, and we are living in a very insane world right now where far-right lunatics actually gain sympathy of the people with their conspiracy theorizing, scapegoating. Well, you know, Trump is the president in the United States. You know that stuff works. And there are pluses to this and there are minuses to this. There are pros and cons. Pros are that Grzegorz Braun is taking away the more radical voters away from the Law and Justice Party, which means that the Law and Justice Party actually has to go more right, which is a minus to a degree. And also there is a very distinct possibility that the Law and Justice Party will seek a coalition with those more radical parties that are going far more to the right, which means that should the current coalition lose in next year's election, we might be seeing a far more right-wing lunatic Poland, which might actually open the road to Poland actually seriously considering Polexit. And Polexit is a silly name for Poland exiting the European Union, which would be a disaster for Poland. I don't think people realize how disastrous Poland leaving the European Union would be for Poland, first of all, and how wonderful it will be for Russia. What a gift it would be for Russia for Poland to leave the European Union. And Grzegorz Braun represents the movement to leave the European Union. It's Grzegorz Braun represents the worst aspects of Polish politics, which is why I believe that he is worth covering. It is worth talking about Grzegorz Braun. Like many times when I talk about Grzegorz Braun, it is in the context of mocking him, it is in the context of making fun of him, it is in the context of his silly Star Wars review, but it cannot be understated that he actually has a following, that he actually has people that are willing to vote for him, that he does represent the very dangerous far-right trajectory that Poland could very well take. That is anti-Ukraine, that is anti-European Union, that is very isolationist, and which is a huge shock and just fills me with disgust, pro-Russian. The fact that a pro-Russian party can gain any traction in Poland is a huge surprise to me, considered Poland's history, but it is what it is. The only thing that I can do is to discuss it, is to point out the stupidity of it, is to point out just how this sort of fanaticism will hurt Poland in the end more than any other place. It'll backfire if anything that Grzegorz Braun would come to pass. Poland as a country would find itself in dire straits. That is my genuine opinion. All right. Any questions? I am taking questions now from all of you. Hello, Simon Pierre Dubé. I just finished a segment about your favorite politician, Grzegorz Braun. Amazing. Kyle Parker has said that he uploaded 2 segments on the network channel, which is good. No questions? Nobody has any questions for me? Regarding Grzegorz Braun, I assure you, no other streamer will cover Grzegorz Braun. I can 100% guarantee you that there is not a streamer that will cover Grzegorz Braun. So if you have any questions about our resident Star Wars expert, then, you know, I am the only person in the world that can answer them. Why are you so cute and based? That's not true. That's not true. It's fake. The truth is that I eat shit and have brown teeth, and I'm stupid and ugly. Or at least that is what my comments say on my YouTube. My Lucy has a YouTube, that is. And I look like Christian. That's one of the newest comments that I received under my videos on the other channel. Also that I'll never be a woman with that chin. Gay incels? Let's not be mean to gay people, okay? All right, let's continue the news. Continue the news. Where's fake Alec Cal Parker? Fake Alec Cal Parker has abandoned us. Wait a minute. I'm gonna check something quickly on the... Do I have the phone? Oh yes, one moment. Let me check something on the phone, okay? I got great news for all of you. Could I share my news? The only problem I have with this is that too many people don't know how to sit and pee. To be fair, I'm not really comfortable with sitting and peeing in a public restroom. Hold on. Hold on. Let me check if a pile Parker is correct. Good. We're getting views on the news channel now. I am reliving my new renaissance. But it's one of the cause of women resentment. Have you been watching President Sunday again? Simone Pierre Dubé, have you been watching President Sunday? Resentment? More resentment? Oh, we're gonna do a wholesome news segment now, okay? Bisons. Resentment would be Brooks. Brooks and Sunday are basically the same person. Okay? Brooks and President Sunday are just the same person. They all look the same to me. What? Yeah, they're just the same. They're the same. They're all the same. Wait, bisons in Poland? Yeah, of course. Of course there's bisons in Poland. Bison boom. How the big beast herd has swollen in Polish mountains. Look at them, cute bisons, right? Clip and sending it to Brooks. Do it. Do it. They're not native to Europe. What do you mean they're not native to? Yes, they are. Okay, I'm gonna have to teach all of you a lesson. European Bison Wiki. It literally is called the European Bison. How can it not be native to Europe? The European bison, Bison bonasus of the European wood bison, also known as the Wisent, the Żubr, or sometimes colloquially as the European buffalo, is a European species of bison. It is one of two extant species of bison alongside the American bison. The European bison is the heaviest wildland animal in Europe, and individuals in the past may have been even larger than their modern-day descendants. During late antiquity and the Middle Ages, bison became extinct in much of Europe and Asia, surviving into the 20th century only in northern central Europe and the northern Caucasus Mountains. During the early years of the 20th century, bison were hunted to extinction in the wild. No. The ancient Greeks and ancient Romans were the first to name bison as such. The 2nd century AD authors Pausanias and Oppians referred to them as bison, bisonchon. Earlier of the 4th century BC, I cannot believe that nobody knows about the bisons that survived in Poland. skull shape of the European bison. The similar skeletal morphology of the bison with the steppe bison, which also formerly inhabited Europe, complicates the understanding of the early evolution of the European bison. It is the thought of the European bison, generally key a develop. Okay, enough. Okay, enough Wikipedia. Let's read about the cuteness of the bison, of the Poland. Foresters have recorded a surge in the number of European bison living wild in Poland's southern Bieszczady Mountains. Wow, look at them. They're so cool. Would you not like to have a bison in your house as a pet? You would mount your pet. Europe's heaviest indigenous land mammal was hunted to extinction in the wild in the early 20th century. Since then, conservation efforts have seen the number of animals increase steadily, and the species is no longer considered endangered. The almost 10,000 European bison living in the wild today are all descended from a dozen forebears chosen as prime specimens by Polish scientists. The 12 bison apostles, as they are affectionately known among Polish conservationists, were used to repopulate the animals' original roaming grounds. Today, Poland remains at the forefront of bison breeding, with around 3,000 of the beasts, the world's biggest national wild herd. Wow. Wait, Poland has the biggest amount of bisons? Today, Poland remains at the forefront of bison breeding, with 3,000 of the beasts, the world's biggest national wild herd. That's crazy. Poland is number one bison place? Wait, hold on. Did I misunderstand it? Is Poland world's number one bison breeder? Oh my god, yes, Poland is widely considered the world's leading country for breeding and conservation of the European bison, known as the Polish Żubr, which also happens to be the name of a Polish beer brand. As of 2025, Poland holds the largest population of European bison in the world, with a record number of exceeding 3,000 individuals. Poland is the biggest place for Żubr, for bisons. Wow. This is incredible, isn't it? Poland deserves props, right? Poland deserves props for... Is it related to Street Fighter and bison? Yes. Wow. Well, the most famous stocks of the species live in eastern Białowieża forest. Other parts of Poland are also home to bison bonasus of the Żubr, or the Żubr, as it is known locally. Not all good. Okay, as always with Poland, if something is good, it has to be countered by something really horrible. So what is it? What are the bad news? Forestry authorities in southern Poland reported on Thursday that the most recent census of bison stocks in the Bieszczady Mountains counted 880 individuals, up from 764 in the previous inventory conducted a year ago. I should do a stream looking for bisons in Poland, that's true. But I don't have enough money to travel, so I would need bigger audiences and bigger, I don't know, support. The greatest concentration was found in the Baligród Forest district in an area of Poland between the Slovak and Ukrainian borders, where 14 herds were counted, numbering a total of almost 400 bison. The biggest single herd was home to 99 exemplars of the species. Okay, what's the bad news then? It's okay, I'm growing, actually. I've been experiencing growth, I will say, so... Actually, things have become Things have been going not bad, I think. The news is not all good, however. Conservationists warn that growing herd numbers come with risks, and that overpopulation can lead to epidemics of tuberculosis and thalassionis, an eye infection caused by parasitic worms. Oh no. It's okay though. Bisons are good. Bisons are good beans. Look at this bison. Look at this bison. Even Fido got excited in the other room. He heard bison and he was like, no way, bro. Bisons? Bisons are cool. You know? You know what I mean? Any questions besides if the bisons are related to M. bison? Which, by the way, M. bison is the changed name. In Japan, M. bison was not... M. bison was the boxer, actually, in the Japanese version of Street Fighter. I don't know if you're aware. Okay? The names were changed. Actually, the character that is called M. bison in the West is called Vega in Japanese. Balrog is the person with the claws. Are they related to the boxer too then? Yes. Yeah. Bison is called Vega. Balrog is the one with the claws, and Bison is the boxer. Actually, in Japanese. But they switched it around for some reason. Isn't that cool? This is so weird. Also, why are the numbers in Japanese so hard? Wait, what do you mean hard? What's so hard about the numbers in Japanese? Tell me and then maybe I will, you know. Well, you pronounce them differently depending of context. It's not like you pronounce them differently depending on context. You use the different word. Ichi-ni-san young or Ichi-ni-san shi. But it's not that difficult. It's just only two numbers have that, 7 and 4. It's either nana or shichi, or it's either yon or shi. But most other numbers are just, you read them the same. Only two numbers have that actually. You know? I'm learning so much with you, Lucy. Really? And you should, what do you call it? Become a $1 patron. Oh, there you go. Don't you think so, Simon Pierre Dubé? Shouldn't you become a $1 Patreon? I will link it to you now. Copy. There you go. Hey, 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 hey. Hee, hee, hee. Oh boy. Isn't that fascinating? All right. Let's go. Let's talk about other wonderful things like the fact that ICE has been deployed in airports. Okay. Now in the US, when you go to an airport, have to know you a little better. You don't know me by now? Now, when you go to an airport, you will have the honor of being accused of being an undocumented immigrant, especially if you're not white. A ICE agent will stop you. Why is that instead of nichto? That's not a problem with numbers. That's just a nature of kanji having different readings. And you utilize those different readings depending on whether kanji is alone or if a kanji is in a combination. Because all kanji have two readings, the Japanese reading and the Chinese reading. Yeah. It still means two people, yeah. It's just that you use the no, people is human is hito, nin, and okay, let's go. Because I feel like I need to give you a lesson. Jisho, even though this channel is not even for languages, this channel is supposed to be just for politics, but there you go. I'm going to teach you. This is the kanji for person. This is the Japanese readings. Hito, ri, to. This is the Chinese readings. Jin, nin. Right? And in combination, you say, you see here, ri. That's why it's futari. Because there's uses this ri in combination. Right? So futari. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. That's why the writing system in Japanese is considered more complicated more difficult than the one in China, because China has just one reading for one character and Japanese has several. You know? It's okay. You will learn. But for now, listen to me talk about how you're gonna be stopped and frisked at the airport by ICE. And possibly, I don't know, shot if things don't go well. Trump has deployed ICE agents to the nation's airports. What's their role? Well, this depends who you ask. President Trump has deployed immigration and custom enforcement agents to major airports across the country amid staffing shortages caused by the partial government shutdown. Oh, there's a partial government shutdown. After funding for the Department of Homeland Security lapsed in mid-February, Transportation Security Administration employees have been left to work without pay. Since then, more than 480 agents have quit, according to TSA's Deputy Administrator Ha Nguyen, which Nguyen is a Vietnamese surname, McNeil, and thousands more have called out of work each day. Meanwhile, ICE has been unaffected because Congress allocated a separate $75 billion in funds to the agency last summer. Oh, I'm so happy that ICE has extra separate funding, and even if all other governmental agents are not being paid, ICE will always get paid in order to be able to do their job of terrorizing US citizens. Isn't that great? Isn't that amazing? You gotta love that. ICE gets extra funding for that. Make America great again. Here's a look at what experts say ICE agents have the authority to do and what their presence at airports might look like. Yeah, that's because that means anything. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, we really should take heed of what agents should and should not be able to do. Well, they should not be acting as police, and yet they have been, so it doesn't really mean anything to tell us what they can and cannot do, because they don't really abide by that, now do they? Well, just for the sake of argument, let's read about what they can do officially. What are ICE agents authorized to do? This is meaningless. It's meaningless to say what ICE is authorized to do, because they do always far beyond what they are authorized to do. ICE is not authorized to do crowd control, and yet they have. ICE is not authorized to just arrest citizens, and yet they have been doing so. ICE is definitely not authorized to execute citizens, and yet that's been happening. So what is even the point of saying what ICE is authorized to do? When ICE was created as part of DHS in 2003, which, by the way, I think that the existence of ICE is ridiculous. Many countries do well on border patrol and don't have the equivalent of ICE. Poland does not have the equivalent of ICE. Many countries do not have the equivalent of ICE. Why does even ICE exist? I can think of no real justification of ICE even existing. Congress gave the agency wide power to question, search, and arrest undocumented immigrants or those believed to be undocumented immigrants without a warrant. Well, now ICE is actually doing far more than just that. Immigration enforcement, especially in its early days, primarily targeted undocumented immigrants who had already been arrested for crimes committed in the United States, according to Theresa Brown, a non-resident immigration law and policy fellow at Cornell Law School. The agency is authorized to issue arrest warrants, stop and question anyone they have reasonable suspicion to believe might be undocumented, which in practice this means anybody that is not white. That is actually the end of it. In the US, reasonable suspicion that somebody might be undocumented means that somebody presents as non-white. Oh, you're brown, or you're Asian, or you're black. Maybe you're just an illegal immigrant, because, we all know that real Americans are white. Detain and prosecute people living in the US illegally and deport them, Brown said. In addition, as federal law enforcement officers, they can arrest people under any existing criminal statute when they witnessed a crime, she said. So they have pretty broad authorities, both under immigration law and just sort of as federal law enforcement officers. ICE agents' powers expanded under Trump administration because, of course, ICE was not already useless enough. It needs to now be given extra powers to terrorize citizens. And by the way, ICE still needs warrants to enter people's houses, which is why we have seen situations in which the police, local police, have been fighting off ICE within states. Two significant developments have occurred and accelerated during the second Trump administration. Hiroshi Motomura, co-director of UCLA's Center for Immigration Law and Policy, told NPR via email. The first, he said, was how the administration has allowed ICE to conduct its operations. The agency has faced criticism for its confrontational tactics, including allowing masked plainclothes officers to arrest and detain people who they suspect to be in the country illegally. And I don't think they even offer any sort of identification. which should not be a thing, that unidentified civilian clothes people come to you and say, you're under arrest because, we are the law. Ridiculous. The second change is that ICE has been separately and extravagantly funded. This is crazy to me, that ICE receives that extra amount of separate funding, being immune to partial or even full government shutdowns, to the extent that it's not directly affected by the current partial government shutdown, Motomura noted. He warned that these sorts of sweeping changes could have damaging... No shit. No shot. The real problem and real danger is that ICE is being transformed into a police force that operates under more aggressive rules that are traditionally lawful and accepted only at the border, not inside the USA, and operates under a separate, very ample budget, he wrote. Yeah, the extra funded brown shirts. Okay, this is brilliant that Trump has created his own private police that is funded and immune to government shutdown. Brilliant. The United States truly is becoming better again. Listen, it's all in the veil of tradition. The police force used to chase slaves around the United States. And now the police force, the new super cool extra funded police force, is chasing immigrants around the United States. It is all part of the American dream, the American tradition, isn't it? You have to love the conservative respect for traditional values. So what does this all mean for ICE presence at airports? Yeah, let's go. This is the topic that I came here for. I came here for understanding how people wanting to travel will be terrorized at the airport by ICE. When NPR asked DHS on Thursday whether ICE is operating under more aggressive rules, Lauren Biss, an acting assistant secretary, did not address the question and sent a statement saying that ICE agents were working to support the TSA by guarding entrances and exits, assisting with logistics, doing crowd control, and verifying identification using TSA equipment and standard operating procedures. All those things that ICE was absolutely not created to do. Yeah, of course, ICE was created to be airport security. No, it wasn't. That's not the word, the job of ICE. ICE will be just employed everywhere now, won't it? ICE will be doing everything now. The more support we have available, the more efficiently TSA can focus on their highly specialized screening roles to efficiently get airport security lines moving faster, she said. This is just ridiculous. ICE as airport security. White House border czar Tom Homan is in charge of the new program, prompting questions about whether the agent's primary goal will be to help TSA more efficiently ferry through passengers or continue Trump's aggressive crackdown on suspected undocumented immigrants. Yeah, because if there's anything that we know that undocumented immigrants can easily do is to travel by plane, because airport security is so lax that anybody that's undocumented, without any documents, can just go to an airport and get a flight, especially international. What the fuck? They're supposed to help facilitate the process of getting people through TSA. They can't do work of TSA, but they're supposed to facilitate by taking over some of the activities related to security, said Paul Ong, director of UCLA's Center for Neighboring Knowledge. That makes no sense. Why ICE? Why deploy? If TSA needs help, if TSA is so short-handed, then why can't you just hire more people in the TSA? Why do they need to employ ICE that has a completely different reason to exist? Again, will ICE just be employed everywhere now? Will ICE just be deployed everywhere, no matter what it is, no matter if it's anything even within the bounds of what ICE is supposed to do? But they still have the other mandate, that is, ICE is an agency that's created for enforcement within the US, and so that will still be with them while they're there. They will carry out what they believe is their charge of identifying potential immigrants who are not in this country legally, he added. What the fuck is happening? What the hell is happening to the United States of America? Breaking. ICE has been deployed to help Santa Claus to go give presents to children on Christmas, because that will give ICE an opportunity to identify undocumented immigrants in family homes. In comments made on Monday on Fox News, Hannity Homan made it clear that targeting criminal activity was indeed a core component of ICE's airport presence. Fuck me. ICE is going to be everywhere now. We're doing a security function at the airports. We're going to arrest criminals going through the airport. We're going to arrest criminals going through this airport. We're going to look for human trafficking, sex trafficking, money smuggling, he said. He also said that long wait times has dropped. So as of Wednesday, travelers were still facing the longest TSA wait times in history. Oh my God. ICE is just going to be deployed everywhere. They're going to be looking for undocumented immigrants under your pillow. They're going to be they already did raids on. ICE has already conducted raids on graduation ceremonies for primary school children. So who knows what's next for ICE? I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see where else ICE will be deployed to do God's work on this earth. This is going to be amazing, isn't it? It's going to be the best thing ever. And I'm here for it. Is anybody excited? Oh, I'm going to start a poll. I think I can start a poll. Yeah, I can. I can start a poll. Are you excited for ICE at your local airport? Hell yeah. ICE, baby. No. There you go. The poll has started. I'm excited to see I'm so excited to see what the answers to this poll will be. I'm gonna leave it throughout the stream and see what the you know. Here we go. Right. So that's 1, 2, 3. More warm up. No way. Wait, hold on, I have to check something. No way have I been. Have I been already streaming for an hour? This is wild. How can this be? I guess time flies when you're having fun. No? Wait, no? Nobody's excited for ice? That's impossible. I think you're just fueled by resentment. I think you're just fueled by resentment towards the good work that the federal officers are doing in the United States of America. Oh yeah, I have not been talking about this. This is not super new news, but US wants Ukraine to give up Donbass in return for security pledges, says Zelensky, because Trump is pretty desperate. Trump is pretty sad. Trump is a pathetic little man. So even though, again, he has stated that he would end the war in 24 hours, he is unable to end the war. He is unable to make any progress when it comes to the peace negotiations. He is buddy-buddy with Vladimir Putin. He actually very severely underplays the help that he has gotten from Ukraine when it comes to Iran. He has asked Ukraine for help when it comes to his war in Iran. He has received experts and interceptor drones from Ukraine, only to say that he did not need Ukraine at all. And it is revealed that the US has been saying that security guarantees from the United States come only under the condition of Ukraine giving up all of its eastern territories to Russia, which is just a non-starter. Let's be honest here. It is a non-starter. It is something that Ukraine could never, in honestly, not just good conscience, but in if it has any sense of survival, it could never agree to this, because those territories include all the actual key fortifications of Ukraine. So in reality, if Ukraine gave up all those territories, it would just open itself up for a future invasion and conquest. That is the reality of the situation, which is why the best that Zelensky is willing to agree to is the giving up of territory on the current front line, on the current lines of conflict, because Ukraine at least would like to retain all of its most fortified positions that would give Ukraine a chance against further Russian incursions. And if Ukraine gave it all up, then it would just be naked and open to attack. That is the reality of the situation. And that is the reality of the situation that Donald Trump certainly does not care about. The US has made its offer of security guarantees needed for peace deal in Ukraine conditional. See? That is what I said. On Kyiv ceding all of the country's eastern regions of Donbass to Russia, President Volodymyr Zelensky told Reuters in an interview. And I will note that Zelensky is getting increasingly fed up with Donald Trump. Zelensky is increasingly openly conscious of the fact that the United States is just not very much an ally to Ukraine. Although Ukraine as well as Europe have to dance this very awkward dance of needing to placate the United States to a certain degree, because the United States, at the end of the day, still is the most powerful country in the world, and Europe is not quite prepared to completely sever its ties with the United States, which is why it's so crucial for Europe to strengthen itself right now. I think Europe is learning a very painful lesson right now when it comes to dependency on others. With the United States now focused on its own conflict with Iran, which we will talk about in a moment, because the United States is diverting and is very, very seriously considering diverting already purchased weapons by NATO that should be going to Ukraine. The United States, since its lines of it's being very strained by the current war in Iran, and it's thinking to itself, all those weapons that NATO has already purchased to be sent to Ukraine, we could divert those weapons and use them for our war in Iran, which is why Russia is so keen to support Iran in this war. It's all interconnected. It is all interconnected. With the United States now focused on its own conflict with Iran, President Donald Trump is applying pressure on Ukraine in an effort to bring a quick end to the 4-year war triggered by Russia's 2022 invasion, Zelensky said, and there is no quick end to this war. It's exactly as I have said last year. This war will last for a while longer. I've said it, and it seems like I have been correct, because, well, I'm not Hasan Piker. I don't make horrible predictions when it comes to this war. The Middle East definitely has an impact on President Trump, and I think on his next steps. President Trump, unfortunately, in my opinion, still chooses a strategy to put more pressure on the Ukrainian side, he told Reuters, which is absolutely correct. Donald Trump continuously has been pressuring Ukraine and favoring Russia. And there are a couple of reasons for this. The main reason is that Donald Trump, at the end of the day, is still hoping that once this conflict is resorted, he will be able to do business with Russia. And everything that he wanted from Ukraine, he has already actually gotten from Ukraine. He has gotten this crappy, awful mineral deal from Ukraine, which is, as Russia is gaining territory, is becoming increasingly worthless as a document. And he is hoping to do lucrative minerals deal with Russia. He's hoping to just be able to interject United States companies and work on getting resources together and to get a cut. That is why Donald Trump has been turning a blind eye to Russia providing intel to Iran. That is why Donald Trump has been completely ignoring Russia when it comes to the conflict, the war in Ukraine. That is why Trump at times has been straight up blaming Ukraine for the war. It's because of business. It's because of business, as usual. The Ukrainian leader has repeatedly said that robust security guarantees from international partners are needed to ensure that Russia did not restart hostilities in the future if a peace deal was agreed. Donald Trump does not care about that. Donald Trump sees this war as an obstacle of his lucrative dealings with Russia. He sees Russia as friends. He sees Vladimir Putin as his personal friend. So he doesn't care about stuff like that. Threat to Ukraine and Europe. The Americans are prepared to finalize these agreements at a high level once Ukraine is ready to withdraw from Donbass, he said, warning that such a withdrawal would compromise the security of both Ukraine and by extension Europe, because it would cede the region's strong defensive positions to Russia, which is the thing that I have been talking about. But again, Trump does not care about that. Trump does not care about the safety of Ukraine or Europe. Trump despises the European Union and feels safe because of the separation of the sea. There's an ocean between me and Europe, thinks Trump. So why should I care about European security? Especially since now Trump feels very betrayed by Europe and NATO. As he said, I will remember this. Iran has been a test for NATO. I wanted their help, and now I will not help with Ukraine. He already has said very openly when he was told that Iran is not Europeans' war, he said, well, Ukraine is not our war. That was Trump's response, even though there's a huge difference between these things. First of all, Trump invaded, well, not invaded yet, but he is very seriously considering it. Trump has attacked Iran. Trump is the aggressor in this. It is a war of choice. Trump is the aggressor, so he should not be expecting other countries to join in on his war of aggression. That's one. Second of all, Ukraine is very much the United States war because the United States has made certain obligations to Ukraine in the 90s when it gave up its nuclear arsenal. Alongside the United Kingdom and Russia, the United States has guaranteed Ukraine's border integrity. So yes, actually, it is very much the United States war, but who cares, right? Trump sees all of these things as the same, and he thinks that actually Biden started the wars in 2022. So Trump is just a dishonest piece of shit. That is all that I can say about this whole comment that it's not that Ukraine is not the United States war. And this, I will get back at Europe by not supporting Ukraine. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Zelensky has said in January that the security guarantees document between Ukraine and the US was 100% ready and waiting to be signed. Yeah, but he also said that there were certain key aspects that needed to be honed down, which is also important to remember. Then on Tuesday, following talks between US and Ukrainian officials in Miami, he said that there was still work to be done. Yeah, because the United States keeps pressuring Ukraine to give up its territory. Because the United States, and I have been saying that over and over and over again, whenever I cover this topic, the United States has de facto become an ally of Russia. I don't think that's I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that. I don't think I'm even being hyperbolic when I say that. The Russian bet. Speaking in the presidential compound in the center of Kyiv, Zelensky said that Russia, which has consistently demanded territory in Donbass still under Ukrainian control, was betting Washington would lose interest in the talks and walk away. And this has partially come to pass because the United States has been postponing any negotiations while it's waging war on Iran. The negotiations have been postponed. So I think Russia has at least partially gotten what it wanted in that regard. Russia is slowly advancing on the battlefield in eastern Ukraine. Military analyst says it could take several years and a significant amount of manpower for it to fully conquer the region, which includes a so-called fortress belt of cities heavily fortified by the Ukrainian military. Following heavy Russian bombardment of Ukrainian cities on Wednesday, Zelensky thanked the Trump administration for maintaining the supplies of Patriot missile defense systems despite increased demand for these weapons because of the conflict in the Gulf. We'll see, because the United States is already actually, as I said, heavily considering diverting those weapons to the war in Iran from Ukraine. Ukrainian officials have previously expressed fears that shipments of US-made Patriots, the only missiles capable of downing Russian ballistic missiles, would dry up because of the Iran conflict. It might still happen, don't worry. We're not stopped from deliveries. I'm very grateful to President Trump and to his team, Zelensky said, but his supply of Patriot missiles is not as large as we need. Ukraine is making progress in its production of its own long-range missiles and drones, allowing it to strike deep within Russia in retaliation for Russian bombardment of Ukrainian cities, he said. So, there you go. Ukraine is being pressured by a country that supposedly should be, on paper, its biggest ally. But as soon as Trump took office, it became very clear that the United States is more Russia-oriented than Ukraine-oriented when it comes to this war. Going as far as to blame Ukraine for the conflict itself. Sometimes Trump even talks about this war as if Zelensky invaded Russia and not the other way around. Russia invaded Ukraine. And that is something that I should also remind people, because it is something that people often overlook. Trump is definitely not an anti-war president. As much as he likes to say that no new wars, I mean, that whole thing has been just made into a laughable statement because he started his own big war with Iran. But I don't think it came out of nowhere, is what I'm saying. I don't think it should be a surprise to anybody that Trump has actually done this, considering that for the longest time, ever since he has taken office, if you listen to how he spoke about the war in Ukraine, he has criticized Russia for the war, but not in the way that you would think that he should. He has been criticizing Russia not for invading Ukraine. He has been criticizing Russia for not having defeated Ukraine fast enough. He has been criticizing Russia for not having ended the war in a couple of weeks or days. That is what he said. Russia should have ended this conflict very quickly, but it has not, and now it has gone for too long. That is basically, that has been time and time and time again Trump's main criticism of Russia in this war. And you know that when a leader of the most powerful country in the world criticizes a wannabe empire, not for invading its neighbor, but for not defeating the neighbor quick enough, you know that things are not good. You know that you're not exactly dealing with a peace-loving president at that point. All right. So that's it. And it goes without saying that, of course, Ukraine should not give in to anybody's demands when it comes to ceding territory. Ukraine should absolutely not be pressured into giving up these territories, and Europe really, and that is something that also must be said time and time and time again, Europe really must step up and help Ukraine not to have to make those concessions. Because if it does make those concessions, then I dare say we're all screwed. Here in Europe, at least, we will all end up being screwed if that comes to pass. Phew. All right. Any questions from me? I'm gonna ask that after every single I'm gonna ask that after every single segment to make sure that people are still here. Speaking of. Speaking of. I'm gonna grab a drink. A very slow stream tonight. It'd be nice if I had So what's next? What next? Oh, I'm going to go through all the topics of this thing. Now I'm going to talk about because Zelensky has thanked the United States for not diverting any weapons from Ukraine to Iran. So of course now I have to talk about how the Pentagon mulls diverting Ukraine military aid to the Middle East. Because of course, just as Zelensky is very thankful for the United States for not screwing it over, of course I have to talk about the fact that the United States is very heavily considering screwing Ukraine over. Because that is the reality that we're living in now. That's why I wrote in the title, the United States backstabs Ukraine again. A lot of agains in today's stream's title. A lot of agains. Again and again and again. The Pentagon is weighing whether to redirect weapons originally meant for Ukraine to the Middle East, as the war in Iran strained supplies of some of the U.S. military's most critical munitions, the Washington Post reported Thursday, citing 3 people familiar with the matter. Where's timeline? Hello, Polyphonica. Welcome. I'm glad to see you here. I'm always glad to see every single viewer. Every single one of my, dare I say, regular viewers. And I think Polyphonica is becoming a regular viewer, which I'm happy to see. You're just in time because today is very doomer stream. I still haven't done the topic of trans people being banned from the Olympics, which we're going to be talking about, of course, later. So there you go. The weapons that could be redirected include air defense, interceptors, missiles purchased. Oh, okay, I have to read this again because Zelensky, just in the segment that I did seconds ago, said, I am so grateful for the United States for not redirecting those anti-air missiles that we need so badly right now as the Russia is bombing us harder than ever. The weapons that could be redirected include air defense interceptor missiles purchased through a NATO initiative launched last year, under which partner countries buy U.S. arms for Kyiv, the report said. So not only is the U.S. not giving Ukraine weapons as aid anymore, it is selling those weapons to NATO, and NATO gives those weapons to Ukraine. But now the US is apparently considering redirecting the weapons that have already been purchased by NATO. So it doesn't even matter if NATO purchases those weapons. The United States can just decide, oh no, we're just going to use them elsewhere now. Who cares if they've been already purchased? We got our money and now we're going to use the weapons on something else. Amazing. The United States is such a reliable business partner. That's just more reason for Europe to actually get its stuff together and create its unified industrial complex, because this is ridiculous. the fact that the United States is actually considering redirecting already purchased weapons to its war. The consideration comes as U.S. operations in the region intensify. Admiral Brad Cooper, the rental command chief, the central rental. Admiral Brad Cooper, the Central Command Chief leading U.S. forces in the Middle East, on Wednesday said the U.S. had hit over 10,000 targets inside Iran and was on track to limit Iran's ability to project power outside its borders. A Pentagon spokesperson told the newspaper that the Defense Department would ensure that U.S. forces and those of our allies and partners have what they need to fight and win. That's just, I don't trust the US government at all when it comes to talking about how the war in Iran is going, considering that Trump keeps saying that it's over, Trump keeps saying that it's been already won, while other people from his government say that, well, no, we should prepare for the long haul, especially since countries in the area are allowing Trump to facilitate a ground invasion of Iran. So, no, actually. Israel, I think, was told to prepare for the war to last for at least 2 weeks longer. In response to a query about the report, a NATO official said members of the alliance and its partners continue to contribute to its prioritized Ukraine requirements list, program that funds the supply of U.S. arms for Kyiv. Equipment is continuously flowing into Ukraine, the official added. The amount pledged to PURL so far is of several billion US dollars, and we expect more contributions to follow. The Pentagon and the U.S. State Department did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for comment. So, as much as the weapons are still being shipped in Ukraine, who knows, maybe as the tides of war will shift, the United States might decide to prioritize its own interest in Iran and say, well, you know what? Ukraine might need these weapons, but we need them more. Who cares if they were already purchased by NATO? Our war is more important. Besides, if Ukraine wants, it can just give up all of the Donbass and have a peace treaty signed. Because as we know, the United States is actually pressuring Ukraine to give up its territory in order to attain peace. So there's a possibility, there's a not small possibility that Trump might say, oh, Europe has betrayed me and did not join me in my ridiculous war in Iran. Well, then I will screw over everybody and I will divert shipments of weapons, and I will not even sell weapons to Europe anymore. And you can all just fend for yourselves, because Trump is a buffoon, just an ego-driven buffoon. That is what Donald Trump is. And I'm scared that we will all suffer for it. We will all suffer because of Trump's ego. As always, Ukraine is suffering because of Trump's ideas as to how the world should be shaped and as how international relations should manifest themselves moving forward. Time and time again. There's one more big topic that I would like to talk about today, but no, don't worry, we'll get there. We'll slowly but surely get there. It's very comical considering that Trump has very recently, time and time again, said that NATO should help the United States with Iran because the United States has been helping NATO with Ukraine. Which, first of all, again, the framing of the United States of being outside of NATO is very interesting to me, because that's how it sounds when Trump says stuff like NATO should help us. And second, it's very interesting that Trump actually believes that he is helping NATO with Ukraine, considering that all he has done is to break Russia's diplomatic isolation on the world stage, stopped any sort of pressure on Russia when it comes to the war, increased pressure on Ukraine when it comes to the war, stopped any aid to Ukraine, and instead of giving Ukraine weapons, started selling weapons to NATO so that NATO would give the weapons to Ukraine. That is the kind of help that Trump has given to NATO when it comes to Ukraine. Think of that what you will. You can judge it by yourselves as to the quality of that aid. That is for you to judge. That's all that I will say on that subject. So, as always, after each segment today, any questions? Any questions for me? I'm gonna pour myself something to drink. All right, I guess it's time. I've done this, I've done this, I've done that, I've done that. Ooh, okay. I actually wonder if I should do Hasan as part of this channel or as part of that other channel. It's actually something that I'm really considering. Should Hasan be part of network, or should Hasan be part of Lucy Haze, the regular channel? I wonder. What do you think? What do you think? What is your opinion? Oh. Ooh, damn. I don't know. I'm not a YouTuber. Damn. All right. Before even considering that, I want to talk about trans issues because, of course, I'm a trans streamer. And as a trans streamer, I always have to do at least one trans topic because, goddamn, has the world been turning against trans people as of late? I thought that trans topic has been making some progress when the European Union has made this announcement that trans women are women, because it's always about trans women. Trans topics are always about trans women. Trans men are just ignored, and binary people are just a non-existent entity. Okay, trans men are treated as I don't know, something that is not worth discussing, and non-binary people's existence is not even recognized, and trans women are just treated as those predators because trans women are treated as men, and as we all know, men are predators. So the only topic when it comes to trans issues is trans women, at least on the public forum. So with the announcement of the European Union that trans women are women, I was hoping that maybe we are seeing a change of tide when it comes to the topic of trans people, but no. Trump's presidency has paved the way to a new wave of trans discrimination, of trans people being shunned. Trans topic is one of the biggest political chips used around the world, and now the Olympics have become no exception. The Olympic Committee bans trans athletes from women's events, raising many questions, which is interesting because have trans men being banned from men's events? No, it's always about women because it's always about trans women because, again, men are predators. It's not the Olympic Committee bans trans athletes from events, period. No, it's from women's events because apparently only trans women exist. Apparently only trans women are trans people. Yes, really. Yes, really. And many groups are unhappy about this, understandably. The International Olympic Committee will ban transgender athletes from competing in women's events based on the results of mandatory genetic screening. Yes, I kid you not. The Olympics Committee has decided that people's DNA will be screened. People will have genetic screening, and this will hurt cis people as well as trans people, by the way. Like cis people that do not meet certain criteria will be just banned from the Olympics. I don't even want to mention I will mention. Also, intersex people will definitely be hurt by this. This is a ridiculous measure, especially since data when it comes to trans people competing in sports is very inconclusive. This is definitely a political means. This is not something that is was done for the sake of fairness in sports. Let's not pretend that it's made for the fairness in sport. Because by that logic, any outlier that has any biological advantage should be banned from the Olympics. The IOC announced the policy on Thursday after a year-long review. It will take effect starting at 2028 Summer Games in Los Angeles. And this is ridiculous on many levels. And as we continue reading this article, you will see why this is ridiculous. And you will see why this is fundamentally a political decision rather than any kind of science-informed decision or fairness-informed decision. At the Olympic Games, even the smallest margins can be the difference between victory and defeat, said IOC President Kirsty Coventry in a video statement. It is absolutely clear that it would not be fair for biological males to compete in female category. No, it is not absolutely clear. It is only absolutely clear if you want to pander to a certain demographic. That is certainly clear to me. The topic of transgender participation in sports, from school teams to world stage, has been a cultural flashpoint, exactly, a cultural flashpoint in recent years, though it's unclear how many transgender women currently compete at the Olympic level. A very small amount. I think there are like 10 trans athletes between all sports, and I'm not even just talking about the Olympic level. Weightlifter Laurel Hubbard made history as the first openly transgender woman to do so in Tokyo in 2021. Though no woman who transitioned after being assigned male at birth is known to have participated in an Olympics since. Nevertheless, controversy ballooned in Paris 2024 when right-wing politicians and commentators called into question the sexes of two female boxers. And this is exactly why this will hurt cis people, because those boxers were not trans, who have been previously disqualified from boxing world championships after failing eligibility tests. One of them was cleared for a competition after approval last week, while the other, who has repeatedly identified herself as a cisgender woman, is challenging the world boxing testing requirement in court. There you go. This is exactly why this sort of thing will hurt cis people, not just trans people. Because if your biology does not meet the criteria, you're out, whether trans or not. While the accusations were not proven true, they sparked a global debate over gender eligibility and prompted the IOC to begin the review that led to this policy. The IOC says the new rule is based on scientific evidence and protects fairness, safety, and integrity in the female category. And now we get into the crux of the matter, because I do not believe that it is based on scientific evidence. I do not believe that it is made to protect fairness. Why? Why do I say that? Because actual experts criticize this. Experts say the testing raises a multitude of concerns, which I guess the Olympic Committee does not seem to care about. There are questions about the reliability and cost of the testing, as well as the interpretation and finality of its results. Critics of the policy say it invades the privacy of all women and that it discriminates against intersex people whose reproductive or sexual anatomy do not fit binary definitions of male or female. And even though the IOC says its policy does not apply to grassroots or recreational sports programs, some experts told NPR they fear it could affect more than just Olympic hopefuls. If a woman suspects that she might not pass this screening, she might be deterred from pursuing sports altogether, said Jamie Schultz, a sports historian and professor of kinesiology at Pennsylvania State University. It doesn't just affect the people that are being tested, it affects all women athletes, every single one. This is why I say that this is not based on science, this is not made for the sake of fairness. This is just done to attack trans people because that is the thing to do right now. That is the popular thing to do right now. The tide of the cultural shift is very much against trans people right now. And to not rock the boat, organizations like the Olympics just cave in and say, yeah, we're just going to ban trans people. We're just going to ban trans people for the sake of fairness. Because that is where the winds are blowing now. That is the cold reality of it. That is where the winds have shifted, and certain organizations are just trying to adapt. Coventry acknowledged and sensitivity of the topic and promised more details will come in months ahead. The genetic testing raises scientific, financial, and ethical questions. Again, this is why I say that this is absolutely not done in good faith, and based on scientific evidence and for the sake of fairness. The IOC says eligibility for the female category will be determined by one-time SRY gene screening, unless there is reason to believe that a negative reading is in error. This will be a once-in-a-lifetime test, it says. The screening involves swabbing a person's cheek or drawing blood to look for the presence of the SRY gene, which stands for sex-determining region Y, and is associated with sexual development typical of males. Again, this whole thing is not about trans people. The title is misleading. It's not about banning trans people. It's about banning trans women. Because again, there's no talking about trans men being banned from men sports. No, nobody cares about trans men. It's always about trans women, without fail, without exception. Always, always about trans women. But there are plenty of intervening variables. Schultz cautions. A male lab tech could potentially contaminate the sample, she said, leading to a false positive. And just because a woman tests positive for the gene doesn't mean she benefits from the hormones it produces. There's been moments where women have tested positively for this SRI gene, but their body can't respond to male typical levels of testosterone. So there's no athletic benefit associated with that gene. So those people will be out. Those people will be disqualified for no reason whatsoever. Those people will suffer from this test. Schultz says there's all sorts of genetic, chromosomal, environmental things that go into contemplating this. And while the IOC says that SRI gene represents highly accurate evidence that an athlete has experienced male sex development, there is a lack of consensus about that in the scientific community. So there you go. So much for the claim that this decision has been done on scientific grounds. So much for that. This is all bullshit. This is all bullshit just created to get rid of the problematic group, which is trans people, or trans women rather. In fact, the scientists who discovered the SRI gene in 1990, Andrew Sinclair, has publicly opposed using the test to determine biological sex. Yeah, this is all scientifically based, right? The person that discovered the SRI gene has said, no, this test should not be done. In an op-ed published in the Conversation in 2025, after World Athletics adopted the test, he reiterated that it isn't cut and dried. All it tells you is whether or not the gene is present, he wrote. It does not tell you how SRI is functioning, whether a testis has formed, whether testosterone is produced, and if so, whether it can be used by the body. So it's a useless test. It's a useless test that will determine whether or not people will be able to take part in the Olympics. Brilliant. This is what happens when culture war enters real life and enters really pretty serious events. This is what happens when everything is based on culture war nonsense. The IOC said there will be rare exceptions for athletes who test positive if they have a diagnosis of complete androgen insensitivity syndrome or some other rare disorders in sex development, but it hasn't yet explained how athletes might access that exception or appeal a decision. That's concerning to Erika Lorschbau, the executive director of Interact, a nonprofit that advocates for intersex youth. A process like that is going to run up into all the same thorny things that all of the other sex determination processes have come up against, such as is this going to involve an examination of a girl's body? Will it require further biomedical testing? Lorshaw said, adding that they work with young athletes with many kinds of intersex variations. It's not clear what it is exactly they're up against in trying to just participate in their sport. I guess screw intersex people as well, right? Lorbo, who is a civil rights lawyer, says genetic testing also raises privacy concerns, especially when the results are going to the IOC. Because of those concerns, European countries like France and Norway already ban any genetic testing not done for medical or research purposes. Schultz says athletes from those countries will have to travel abroad to get tested. The screening alone can cost $250, she says, adding a financial burden to athletes and federations. And it's not clear who will bear the cost. The Olympic Committee should bear the cost if that's their idea, quite honestly. Or whether that might vary by country or sport. Schultz worries that cash-strapped countries could decide to send fewer women to competitions or potentially not at all. There's so many ways that women's sport needs help, needs funding, and needs attention, but this just seems like a waste of resources when they could be used in so many valuable ways. She said, yeah, suddenly everybody cares about women's sports suddenly when it is about attacking trans people. Usually women's sports are underfunded, treated as a joke, treated unseriously. But no, when it comes to the opportunity to harm trans people, suddenly it all becomes super serious, actually. The most serious topic. Transgender sports participation as a political issue. That's the real reason. It's a political issue. And the Olympic Committee just toes the line. That is my opinion. And I would need to see some significant evidence for me to be actually convinced that the political issue is not the main reason. The next Olympics will be hosted in the US. What a coincidence. Donald Trump's America is a highly transphobic country. Legislation after legislation, executive after executive order is being passed against trans people. What a coincidence that the Olympic Committee has made this decision just when the next Olympics is about to be hosted in the US, where Trump will be able to brag about this, how the gender madness has ended, that thanks to him, these women will be able to, that there will be no men in sport. You'll see. Just wait for the Trump speeches for the Olympics. Just wait for them. I guarantee you that he'll take credit for it and he'll glaze the Olympic Committee and say that they have took his lead and no men in sports. You'll see. Where trans participation in sports has become a hot button issue and legal minefield in recent years, President Trump and other conservatives seized on the idea of transgender women and girls competing in sports that align with their gender identity, opposed to what they describe as an unfair competitive advantage, no evidence of that, and potential safety risk, no evidence of that. But proponents want sports to be inclusive and worry transgender athletes will be cut out of participating. Yes, they will. I can understand how any kind of hint of unfairness might raise people's hackles, said Schultz, but I think this blanket ban on transgender athletes is damaging. I think it can vilify trans folks who aren't even competing in sports. Yes, it will, because that is the whole point. That is the whole point. Attacking trans people is the point of this. Because there needs to be a villain, and trans people are just an easy target. That is the reality of this ban. To date, 27 US states have laws barring trans girls from participating in team sports at publicly funded schools, which the Supreme Court appears likely to uphold. Look at that dumbass. Yeah, it's all about discrimination. In February 2025, Trump issued an executive order aimed at banning trans women of all ages from competing on women's teams. And again, this executive order specifies trans women, trans girls. Trans men don't exist in this. Trans men are not even being treated as a topic, because trans men are just confused girls. And we all know that girls could never stand a chance against men, and that is why there's no need to legislate anything regarding trans men. That is the logic employed here. And as we all know, all trans women are predatory men, so there needs to be a legislation. There needs to be a special executive order. In part by threatening to pull federal funding from institutions that allow it, the NCAA quickly complied. The Trump administration chaired the IOC's decision on Thursday, with White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt tweeting that this executive order made this happen. There you go. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt tweeting that his executive order made this happen. But at press conference that day, Coventry, the IOC president, rejected the notion of political influence. That's a lie. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. This was a priority for me way before President Trump came into his second term. That's bullshit. I don't believe that. She said, there is not being any pressure on us to deliver anything from anybody outside of the Olympic movement. Yeah, it's just a giant coincidence that this comes into play right before the Olympics in the United States under Donald Trump, right? It's just a giant coincidence. Those things are not related at all. Of course. Coventry, a Zimbabwean swimmer, was elected the first female president of the IOC in 2025. She campaigned in part on strengthening women's sports by protecting female athletes and promoting equal opportunities for women at all levels of our movement. And she acknowledged on Thursday that any and all rules and regulations at any point in time could always be challenged. Thanks. Women have been subjected to questions about their sex since they started competing in elite sports a century ago, initially accompanied by invasive gynecological exams and physical scrutiny. From the 1960s and to the 1990s, the IOC required female athletes to verify their sex through chromosome testing, which was eventually replaced by SRI testing. The IOC dropped that requirement in 1999 after mounting pressure from athletes and scientists. Also, they're saying that it's not a political decision. but scientists oppose it. Make it make sense. Make it make sense that scientists themselves say the person that discovered the SRI gene said that it's a stupid way to test, that this should not be used as a test. But no, this is absolutely not a political decision. Absolutely not. I don't know who is supposed to believe this bullshit. I have no clue who is supposed to buy this, but the reality of the situation that it is absolutely a political decision. It is absolutely a very pathetically thinly veiled attempt at kissing up to Donald Trump. It's just, it's not very well hidden. I'm sorry. I am not that naive. I am not as naive as to believe that this is not a very weakly covered up attempt at trying to kiss up to Donald Trump before the Olympics. Maybe that's not the case, but to me, a lot of this just stinks of wanting to kiss up to Trump. If experts oppose it, if medical professionals oppose it, if scientists oppose it, then why is the real actual reason for this? What is the scientific evidence that informed this decision? I would like to know. I'm very curious. No, this is just bullshit. And this should be boycotted. It's not about fairness. If it was about fairness, first of all, then it would be about all trans people across the board. But no, it's only about trans women because trans women are the culture war topic. This alone is the evidence that it's not about science or fairness. The fact that this decision only affects trans women. It's not about fairness. It has never been about fairness. Nobody cares about fairness. Those are my last words when it comes to this subject. It is not about fairness in the slightest. All right. Again, I have to ask, do you or do you not have any questions? Hmm. Holy wow. What the fuck? Oh man, depressing. The trans topic. As a trans person, you just cannot catch a break, can you? It's impossible. Hmm. No questions? Whew. Right. Let's get to the next topic, which is journalists being accused of spying for Ukraine. Because the main brand of Viktor Orban's whole campaign, whole parliamentary campaign, is going against Brussels, which Brussels is trying to punish Viktor Orban for not wanting to get Hungary involved in the war in Ukraine. That is number one. That is the first pillar of Viktor Orban's election campaign. The second campaign pillar is Ukraine, or rather Viktor Orban's anti-Ukraine rhetoric. The Budapest is filled with posters depicting Zelensky that wants Hungarian citizens to be drafted into the military and sent to the front line. Zelensky that is secretly supporting the opposition party against Viktor Orban. Zelensky that is trying to build a pro-Ukrainian coalition, that is trying to create a pro-Ukrainian government in Hungary that would again send Hungarian citizens to the front line. That is the whole rhetoric, that is the whole campaign that Viktor Orban has crafted in order to win the election. And Viktor Orban is in big trouble. Viktor Orban is apparently, still now the difference has been 20 percentage points. And apparently this gap has widened to 23 percentage points. According to the polls, the opposition party is leading by 23 percentage points. But apparently Viktor Orban has decided to strengthen his message and has decided to use this opportunity to crack down on the media even more. Even though the Hungarian independent media is all but non-existent, Viktor Orban decided to take this extra step to accuse Hungarian journalists of spying for Ukraine, because that's a thing. Viktor Orban is trying to build a narrative of Hungary under siege, under constant pressure from enemies from within and from without. The enemies from Brussels, the enemies from Kiev, and of course, the foreign bought agents that are constantly plotting against Hungary, against Viktor Orban. And some of those enemies from within are the journalists, because Viktor Orban is part of the club of Trump's, Netanyahu's, and Vladimir Putin's. And those do have an adversarial relationship with the free press. Especially vocal about it has been Donald Trump, that straight up demeans any journalist that will ask him a question that he does not like. Hungarian authorities said on Thursday they had launched an investigation to a journalist over accusations that he was spying for Ukraine amid an increasingly acrimonious election campaign. Allegations dismissed by the reporter. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. How would the journalists be spying for Ukraine? How would that even work? How would that even look like? Like, journalists are just reporting on what the situation is in Hungary. How would that count as spying for Ukraine? I have no clue what the exact accusation is here, apart from, of course, it being a witch hunt and part of creating the narrative again of Hungary being under siege, Hungary being under attack from enemies that want to destroy the Hungarian way of life. Nationalist Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, who has kept close ties with Russia during Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, is fighting to extend his 16 years in office in the face of an unprecedented challenge from a center-right opposition party. Yeah, 23 percentage points of difference in the polls. Speak volumes. On Thursday, Orbán's chief of staff told a briefing that journalist Szabolcs Pani, who had been investigating the government's ties to Moscow, was a spy working for Ukraine. Oh, now I get it. Anybody that investigates the fact that Orbán is a clearly pro-Russian leader will be accused for spying for Ukraine. Makes perfect sense. More and more Ukrainian spies are uncovered in the country. The first of them is Szabolcs Pani, who was discovered to have spied against his home country in collusion with a foreign state. Georgi Gulyas said. Of course. Anybody that criticizes Orbán for being openly pro-Russian is a Ukrainian spy. Very convenient indeed. A very simple and unfortunately to some extent effective way to silence any opposition to horrible policy. Government spokesperson Zoltán Kovács said a formal investigation has been launched into the journalist. Police did not immediately respond to emailed questions from Reuters. Pani dismissed the accusation. Accusing investigative journalists of espionage is entirely unprecedented in the 21st century from a European Union member state, Pani wrote on his Facebook page. Yeah, but it's par for the course for Hungary. Of course. Oh, you're investigating our ties to Moscow? You must be pro-Ukrainian spies. It's the crackdown on journalism as well as furthering Orbán's narrative again of Hungary being under constant threat from enemies from within and without. Two birds with one stone, really. This is truly characteristic of Putin's Russia, Belarus, and similar regimes. Yeah. It is characteristic of all the countries that have decided to join Trump's Board of Peace. Pani is an investigative journalist who works for the Hungarian nonprofit investigative outlet Direct36 and Warsaw-based Wieskar.org. As campaigning has accelerated in the build-up to the April 12th parliamentary election, relations between Budapest and Kyiv have reached new lows. Orbán has cast the election as a stark choice between war or peace, saying his center-right opponent would drag Hungary into the war raging the next door in Ukraine. See? Hungary under siege narrative all the time. They're pressuring us. Brussels pressuring us. The opposition is pressuring us. Ukraine is pressuring us. Everybody's pressuring us. And Viktor Orbán is the only true patriot that is trying to stop Hungary from being dragged into the war. That is the narrative. An allegation the opposition has firmly denied because it's ridiculous. The opposition to Orbán is not even all that pro-Ukrainian to begin with. The policy of the opposition party, should it win against Orbán, will not drastically change. If anybody's hopeful that if Orbán loses, Hungary's stance towards Ukraine will drastically change, I am here to tell you, unfortunately, that is not the case. He also repeated accusations that Kyiv and Brussels are interfering in Hungary's election, a charge both reject. But it's a very convenient part of a broader narrative. On Monday, Orbán ordered an investigation into what he said was wiretapping of his foreign minister, Peter Sciarto, as his government responded to a media report about its link to Russia. And yes, Viktor Orban is undeniably linked to Russia. That is undeniably true. There is no denying Viktor Orban's link to Russia. He's been cooperating with Russia from day one of the war. He has not been sending any military support to Ukraine. He has declared Zelensky to be his enemy at the beginning of the war. Instead of, like the rest of Europe, decreasing his dependency on Russian energy, he has increased Hungary's dependency on energy. He has time and time again put the blame of the war on Ukraine. He has all but said that Ukraine should have not defended itself against Russia, that Ukraine is not a real sovereign state, that it doesn't really matter if there are Hungarian agitators in Transcarpathia. He has undermined Ukraine time and time and time again. He is at this point, a very, very pro-Russian figure, and that needs to be understood. So, of course, now he is behind on the polls, 23 percentage points. He's very desperate for the win. He's being endorsed by Donald Trump. He's being endorsed by Vladimir Putin. Of course, he's being endorsed by Vladimir Putin. And he is being endorsed by Benjamin Netanyahu. So, make of that what you will. Viktor Orban will do anything to win. Viktor Orban will crack down on anybody that dares to point out his ties to Russia. He will demonize Brussels. He will continue his antagonistic stance against Ukraine. Because Viktor Orban, at the end of the day, does not care about Hungary, does not care about Hungarians' relations with their neighbors, does not care about the prosperity of the Hungarian people. At the end of the day, the only thing that Viktor Orban cares about is Viktor Orban and Viktor Orban staying in power. Those are the only things that Viktor Orban fundamentally cares about. He does not care about European security. He does not care about the stability in the region. He does not care about the danger that Russia itself poses to Hungary, believe it or not. Or maybe Hungary has already forgotten the history that it has had with Russia and the Soviet Union. Because it seems like people are very quick to forget. But don't worry, I'm here to remind that Hungary has had quite a complicated history with Russia and the Soviet Union. But he does not care about those things. He only cares about power. He cares about staying in power. And it will cost all of us. It will cost all of us here in the region. The fact that Viktor Orban only cares about these things. Hopefully he will lose the election, even if... Because I've been saying that the opposition leader will not be much better than Viktor Orban when it comes to things like, for example, Ukraine. But at the same time, anything's better than Viktor Orban at this moment. Anything is better than Viktor Orban. So the only thing that I can end this particular segment on is to sincerely hope that Viktor Orban loses the upcoming election. That is my hope. That is my wish. We'll see. We will need to see. All right. As always, I need to ask any questions. No questions. Oh, hello, Great Errant. Have you been here all this time? Have you been here watching me shitting on Viktor Orban, the great leader of Hungary? I guess now it's time for me to finally talk about Hasan Piker, huh? We talk about US backstabbing Ukraine again. We've talked about the Olympics banning trans people or trans women, because it's never just trans people, it's always trans women. All trans topics are actually just topics about trans women. None of them are ever about trans men or non-binary people. That will never happen. It's all about trans women. Always and forever. We've talked about journalists being attacked by Viktor Orban just now. We've actually done a few extra topics, but that's fine. And now we can talk about Hasan. How do you feel about the Olympics thing? How do you feel about the Olympics thing? I think it's ridiculous, but I'm biased because I'm trans. Of course I'll be biased. Of course I'll be biased. Like a fool. You answer and I will check on fake Alec Al Parker if he has done his duty as the editor. I'm gonna ask him on the DM him. There we go. I think from what I've heard, people who have been on hormones for years don't pose any deviation from cis players of the sport. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the Olympics test will not be about hormones. There will be genetic screening. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter now what happens. Enter Sonic Adventure theme. Nobody cares about fairness. It's all culture wars. Culture wars. Because nobody cares about fairness. That's the reality of the situation. Alright, let's get here. I'm gonna let Hasan Piker speak. Hasan, you're up. You're up again. God, I don't even know where to go with this one. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated as hell. Let me check something real quick. I'm thinking of how to approach this topic. I am deep at thought. Why are trans men ignored? I know non-binary are ignored because they think it's even less of a thing that exists, probably. Oh, it's very okay. That is a good question, but the answer to this question is very easy. The logic is this: men are predators. Men are predators. Men are wild beasts that have unfair advantage over women. Men take advantage of women. Men are bad, and therefore trans women are basically men, so trans women are predators, and trans women take advantage of things and predate on women and have advantage over women. And that's why everything needs to be about trans women. That's why. Trans men, on the other hand, are just naive women that have been duped into this whole trans thing, and they hate being women and they're trying to get away from being women, and therefore they're transitioned to be men. But at the end of the day, trans men are just weak, naive women. They could never pose any significant danger to men, so they can be just ignored. That is unironically how it is. Trans men are just confused, poor, confused women. They're victims, really, so they should not, there's no need for legislation or any executive orders regarding trans men. Trans women are predators, trans men are victims, basically, of transgenderism. That's basically the logic. It's all about misogyny at the end of the day. It's all about sexism. Sadly, unironically. That is how this whole thing has been framed by TERFs and all other people. Let me check something real quick. God damn. Ooh. Where is President Sandy live? Let me check real quick. Does my explanation make sense, by the way? Oh. I guess President Sunday is not streaming after all. Since he removed the VOD. Maybe he did something TOS on the stream and had to remove it. Whoops. Oops. Oh no, wait, he is live. Never mind.
The connection's really weird right now, isn't it? What's going on here? It's like it's going in and out. Let me see if I can't. Let me try something.
Whoops. President Sunday is in trouble. We'll see what's your interest in watching The Dark Crystal. I have no clue what that is. All right. W. Lucy. Thank you, Big Jerry. Thank you, Big Jerry, for being here. All right, let's talk Hasan Piker. That's the last thing that I'm going to talk about on the political thing. Hasan Piker. Hasan that is being discussed as this. I'm gonna do a whole intro because my frustration by Hasan Piker has been growing. Hasan Piker that's just discussed as this super cool leftist, as this only good big leftist content creator, that we should cherish him and that he's so great. But no, he's not. Especially not when it comes to the topic that is close to home for me, and that is the war in Ukraine. Hasan that has claimed that Russia would never invade, has repeatedly mocked the idea that Russia would invade Ukraine, has done a special bizarre time countdown of days without invasion of Ukraine, has been proven wrong, has said that actually Russia taking over Ukrainian territory is just Russia taking its own territory back, said that he is on neither side, so trying to downplay Russia's role in the invasion as the aggressor, has repeatedly said that Ukraine should have taken the awful deal, awful peace offering from 2022, when Russia was demanding a total demilitarization of Ukraine, that completely ridiculous deal. Hasan that has never talked to any Ukrainian people whatsoever when it comes to this conflict, has not invited any Ukrainian people to his show, has criticized actually those who have talked to Ukrainian people, infamously called Dylan Burns a pervert and a psychopath because he gave Ukrainian people a voice when it comes to responding to Hasan's horrible opinions when it comes to this war. Hasan that usually is all for he is all for fighting for freedom. He is all for resistance against imperial encroachment. He is all for those people that are fighting for their own survival. But suddenly, none of that applies when it comes to Ukraine. No. When it comes to Ukraine should just give up. Ukraine should just not fight. And Ukraine is just a proxy for the United States. Let's not forget. It's just a proxy war, right? And continuously, Hasan Piker doubles, triples, quadruples down on his weird anti-Ukraine stance. And it's not even just an anti-Ukraine stance. He seems to have a weird hatred for all post-Soviet sphere countries, for all countries that were against the Soviet Union. Poland included, Hasan Piker has infamously very weird anti-Polish stances. Very weird anti-Polish comments that he has said were just jokes. It's just jokes, man. It's just jokes when I say that Polish people are backwards people that are stupid. It's just haha jokes. Hasan Piker is one of those left-leaning, quote-unquote, pundits that are very pro-Soviet Union, very pro-Russia, very Marxist-Leninist leaning, very idiotic stances. Okay? That is Hasan Piker. And as a person from Poland, coming from a family that has actively opposed the regime in the 80s, that has led to the toppling of the Soviet-backed regime in Poland in 1989, I, of course, am never going to be on board with this bizarre Marxist-Leninist type of reasoning. Hasan Piker is not a good political pundit, in my opinion. Just for this, just for the stances that he has taken on Ukraine. It basically disqualifies him for me personally. I cannot just in good conscience say, oh yeah, he might be horrible on this topic of the biggest war since World War II, but actually he is a big left-leaning content creator, so I should cut him some slack. No, I should not. I should absolutely not. And we've not even gotten into what he has said in this little video about the topic of Ukraine. Again, let's just check it out, and I might do some commentary. I'll do some commentary on it. Lucy, is there the ability to separate the belief in communism from the support of the USSR? Asks Greater. Yes, absolutely. It is absolutely possible to support communism without being a Marxist-Leninist, without the support of the USSR, because the USSR was not communist fundamentally. It was not. It is ridiculous to claim that it was. So yes, it is absolutely possible. Okay, let's listen to what Hasan Piker has to say. And spoilers, what he has to say is pretty ridiculous. Let's go.
Like, yes, my initial prediction that Vladimir Putin would never invade Ukraine was wrong.
Yeah, it was wrong and stupid. It was more than just wrong. You were mocking actively the people that said that he would invade. You were, every day you had this counter, day X of Russia not invading Ukraine. You were very, very stupid about this whole topic. And you never even bothered to educate yourself on this in the slightest. You don't care. You don't talk to Ukrainian people. You don't really follow this topic. You have no in-depth knowledge on this war.
It's a wrong prediction. The analysis was still obviously correct.
No, your analysis on this war is shitty. It's not obviously correct. It's ill-informed. It's misinformed. It's just horrible. Nobody should listen to this guy when it comes to the war in Ukraine. Nobody.
So much so that, look at the situation now.
Oh yeah, Hasan in 2022 totally did an analysis that included Trump winning the election and throwing Ukraine under the bus. Yeah, of course. Of course it was part of Hasan Piker's brilliant prediction and brilliant analysis. The fact that the United States would become Russia's ally under Donald Trump. Yeah, that was the exact analysis that Hasan has been. Is this a joke? Polyphonica says, Hasan just LARPs as a communist to be edgy, which makes me more angry. Yeah.
Every single thing that I said including the initial ceasefire agreement when Ukraine had the maximum leverage.
Yeah, Ukraine had the maximum leverage. Do you know what that ceasefire agreement included? Total demilitarization of Ukraine. Ukraine would be neutral. And by neutral, of course, that means that it would be in Russia's sphere of influence. And complete butchery of its military. Never joining NATO, never joining any alliance that would be an alliance that Russia would not approve of. But most importantly, completely butchering Ukraine's military capability. Yeah, that's maximum leverage. That is what Hasan Piker calls maximum leverage. Ukraine opening itself for future invasion and basically just being conquered, because if Ukraine would demilitarize to the point that Russia would like, then Russia would be able to just rebuild very comfortably, attack again, and succeed when it failed in 2022. Hasan does not know what he is talking about in the slightest. And the fact that he is doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on this is just infuriating. I don't know if this is just part of Hasan keeping up his image as a leftist, as a communist, quote unquote, or if this is just part of him being a streamer. And of course, streamers can never admit to being wrong about anything. It is physically impossible for streamers like him to just say, oh no, I was wrong about Ukraine. My analysis was not good on Ukraine. I should have learned more about this conflict. I should have gotten more in depth about knowing what's going on. No, he of course will double, triple, quadruple down and say that he was absolutely correct and that Ukraine had maximum leverage in the negotiation, that where Russia basically demanded the exact same things as now. Is this a joke? Hasan has no idea what he is talking about. Wait, let me look it up. Actually, we might just... What were the conditions from Russia for 2022 ceasefire? Conditions for 2022 peace deal leaked, because I think this is important to make to refresher. Okay, I think this needs to be actually, we need a refresher on this. Okay, the Atlantic Council. This is maximum leverage. This is what Hasan calls maximum leverage, and I feel like it's very important for us to remind ourselves what this maximum leverage looked like in practice. So let me see. Putin's 2022 peace proposal was a blueprint for the destruction of Ukraine. This is what Hasan calls maximum leverage on the side of Ukraine. One of the many myths and legends surrounding the Russian invasion of Ukraine is the idea that Kyiv rejected a reasonable Russian peace deal in the early weeks of the war. In reality, recently obtained documents confirm that the terms offered by the Kremlin in spring 2022 would have left Ukraine partitioned, disarmed, internationally isolated, and utterly unable to defend itself against further Russian aggression. Again, this is what Hasan Piker calls maximum leverage on Ukrainian side. In other words, Vladimir Putin's alleged peace proposal was in fact a call for unconditional surrender and a blueprint for the destruction of the Ukrainian state. Maximum leverage. Documents released this week by Radio Free Europe provide important new insights into the severity of the Kremlin's demands when Russia and Ukrainian delegations sat down at the negotiating table in the first weeks of the war. As Putin's army swept across sovereign Ukraine and advanced on Kyiv, Russian officials listed their conditions to halt the invasion and implement a ceasefire. The resulting draft treaty spells out the unacceptable costs of what would have amounted to Ukraine's capitulation. In terms of territorial concessions, Ukraine was expected to cede Crimea and the Donbas region outright. So the same thing that Russia is demanding right now, which, again, in Hasan's mind, this constitutes maximum leverage on Ukrainian side, while also accepting the ongoing occupation of areas then under Russian control until Moscow deemed that its conditions have been fully met. Kyiv would also have been forced to grant Russian the status of official state language and adopt a range of laws targeting Ukrainian religion, history, and national identity that harked back the Russification policies of the Soviet and Tsarist empires. Yeah, Hasan says that Ukraine should have accepted this. The most detailed and revealing segment of the draft peace treaty deals with Ukraine's demilitarization. Russia called for the Ukrainian army to be drastically reduced to a skeleton force of just 50,000 personnel. This was approximately 1/5 of the pre-war total and a tiny fraction of Ukraine's current military, which is believed to number around 1 million soldiers. Meanwhile, tight restrictions were to be imposed on the quantity of armor Ukraine could possess, the types of missiles the country could develop, and the size of the Ukrainian Air Force. The Kremlin's peace plan also obliged Ukraine to renounce its NATO membership ambition and agree not to enter into bilateral alliances or seek military aid from Western countries. In later drafts, dating from the final stages of the abortive peace process in April 2022, Russia also somewhat absurdly insisted on a veto over any international response to a future attacks on Ukraine. Maximum leverage on Ukrainian side. If Ukraine's leaders had accepted Moscow's thinly veiled ultimatum, the country would have been disarmed and defenseless. So again, this is what Hasan Piker sees as a deal that, according to his analysis, Ukraine should have accepted. It was maximum leverage, and not accepting that was a big mistake on Ukrainian side. Just so you know.
Taken. The off-ramp of the Minsk agreements should have been taken.
Again,
The initial ceasefire agreement when Ukraine had the maximum leverage should have been taken.
what I just read out to you, the whole thing that I just read out to you, according to Hasan, this should have been taken. This should have been agreed upon by Ukraine. I could just stop here. I honestly could just stop here. This whole thing about Hasan. Him saying right now, after the documents leaked, after we have learned what this included, him saying that Ukraine should have taken that deal, that just disqualifies Hasan completely from being able to talk about this subject, in my eyes. It's just a complete disqualification of Hasan when it comes to this topic. And in my eyes, to be quite honest, it just disqualifies Hasan as a person that is to be treated seriously on this subject whatsoever. I cannot treat Hasan seriously as a political pundit if he is so dishonest on such a serious topic. The biggest war since World War II. I just cannot treat him seriously.
The off-ramp of the Minsk agreements should have been taken. These are no longer controversial opinions. At the time, people said, oh, you're fucking Vladimir Putin defender. Fuck you,
Yeah, you are. Yes, fuck you.
fuck you. Right? Now, that's the universal position.
That's the universal position. By whom? That's the universal. I hate this. I hate this dishonest piece of shit. This is the universal position now, apparently, that Ukraine should have accepted that peace deal. The universal position. Fuck off. Excuse my language. Just don't make me laugh with this. This is ridiculous. Hasan Piker, the hater of Eastern Europeans.
Hindsight 2020.
It's not hindsight 2020. This is just stupid and uninformed.
Hindsight. It was foresight at the time, it turns out. Things that people consider hindsight was fucking foresight.
No, it wasn't. This is an again, I just read out to you what that peace deal included. Do you think that Ukraine had maximum leverage? Do you?
How many motherfuckers yelled at me and said I'm pro Vladimir Putin?
Yeah. I don't think I actually don't think he's pro Vladimir Putin. I think she's just an uninformed idiot. I think that he's just an ideologue. I think that he's just anti-American ideologue.
You're way too supportive of shitty peace deal? Yeah, things got a lot better. Things got a lot better since then.
Yeah, because Ukraine actually stands a chance. If Ukraine accepted that peace deal, then it would have been all over. And as it stands now, it's not over. So yeah, actually, yeah, it is better. It is better now than it would have been if Ukraine would have accepted that deal. Yeah, it would have been worse.
Right? That shitty peace deal would have been a massive W in comparison to the battle lines currently.
It would have been a massive W. Okay, let me ask anybody who's watching now or anybody who's will be watching this as a VOD in the future. What I've read out to you in that whole article that I brought up about the peace deal, would that have been a massive W compared to what's happening now? I want sincere answers to this question. Would that have been a massive W? And if so, why? I do not believe so. I do not believe that a blueprint to a total dismantling of the Ukrainian state would have been a massive W as compared to Ukraine actually fighting against Russia. I do not believe that.
I hear this all the time. Russia can't withstand the war. Their economy's crashing and Ukraine takes out the Russian infrastructure. Oh my fucking God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't believe that there's this, like, still to this fucking day, Ukraine is winning. Study up. Yeah, I saw they pushed back on some Russian positions. They got, like, a little bit of territory back.
Like, he has no clue what he's talking about. He has no knowledge. He should not be opening his mouth about this conflict. There's so many better content creators to listen to when it comes to this war that get the fraction of his views. This is just ridiculous. Please do not listen to Hasan Piker when it comes to the topic of this war. Do not. There are people that go there, get personally involved in this conflict, report on this conflict directly from the front lines. Listen to those people. Do not listen to Hasan Piker when it comes to this topic. Again, maybe don't take the extreme position that I take, that his stances on Ukraine just, to me, that disqualifies him as a political pundit, because if he's so dishonest on this, then what else will he be dishonest on? That's my stance. You can like him when it comes to other topics. Arguably, he does better work when it comes to different things, but to me, this is pretty much a deal breaker. His stance on Ukraine, to me, as a person from Poland is a deal breaker when it comes to treating Hasan even remotely seriously. I'm not even gonna mention his very bizarre anti-Polish humor, quote unquote.
Fun fact, Quincy Institute is still smeared as a pro-Russia by some in D.C. for criticizing Biden's refusal to engage diplomatically with Russia to end his...
Yeah, I don't care about the Quincy Institute. Let's actually look it up, the Quincy Institute. What is the Quincy Institute? Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft is Washington, D.C. based nonprofit transpartisan think tank founded in 2019. It promotes U.S. foreign policy centered on diplomatic engagement, military restraint, and peace rather than military dominance or endless wars. It is funded by the various opinions on Ukrainian war. Yeah, it's just I will not take this seriously. Sorry. I do not take the Quincy Institute seriously in this. Incub says most American left-wing commentators are really bad when it comes to international. Yeah, I know. Listen, if you want, there are good American left-wing commentators when it comes to this. There are.
Or it turns out pushing diplomacy while correctly predicting the downsides of interventionist policy hurts your credibility in D.C. Good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff, because it's just... No, it's not good stuff. It's stupid.
Quincy Institute experts in March 2022, it's highly unlikely that a protracted war will bring Ukraine significantly better terms. Both sides are going to have to accept painful compromises.
Yeah, painful compromises of Russia does not compromise on anything and Ukraine dismantles itself as a state. Whoa, that is what we call painful compromises on both sides. Again, these people have no clue what they're talking about. Those left-wing pundits see everything in the lens of America is responsible for everything. Yeah, that's why you should listen to people that actually specialize in international relations between countries. Like Dylan Burns. Go watch Dylan Burns when it comes to the coverage of Ukraine. Never watch Hasan Piker. This is just appalling. I'm sorry, this is just ridiculous. This is brain dead nonsense coming from Hasan Piker. Sniffing his own farts.
All of which will become even more difficult to achieve if the conflict is allowed to continue. Ukraine was able to actually catch Russia by surprise. Russia greatly underestimated Ukraine.
Like, at least now Ukraine is still fighting.
Defenses. And Ukraine was able to
Even with all those old odds that are stacked against it.
successfully purge the Russian forces from Kiev, okay, where they withdrew back to the eastern flank. That was the highest leverage that Ukraine had. Since that moment, Ukraine has lost leverage over and over again.
Yeah, highest leverage of the maximalist demands that Russia put forward, not agreeing to back down on anything. Hasan has no clue what he's talking about, as always.
By piece, every single day. And now
No
Ukraine
clue.
is facing, in the current iteration of ceasefire negotiations, Ukraine is facing permanent annexation of Ukrainian territories.
That was what that was what Russia was demanding in that 2022 ceasefire deal. We read it. We just read what Russia was demanding. Again, Hasan has no clue what he's talking about. Russia was demanding permanent giving up of territories from the very beginning. This is not a new development. What a joke. This is considered the biggest left-wing political commentator.
Like legal annexation, which is illegal, obviously, but like legal recognition of annexed territories.
Yeah, that is what Russia wanted from the very beginning. That is what this deal that you say that Ukraine should have accepted, that is what it included. You would know that if you had any interest in this conflict, but you don't.
That's what the current plan is. Yeah, why aren't you pressing the Ukraine
Okay, what was the plan before? Are you saying that the plan before did not include it? Are you joking?
win button? Yeah, just like I'm not pressing the communism button, I'm also refusing to press the Ukraine is going to win button. Yeah, it feels like every single criticism anybody makes of your Russia takes ultimately comes down to you're not giving me as much pro-Ukraine hopium as I want, therefore you must be pro-Russia. Have you ever seen a more reasonable critique? No, I have not.
That's bullshit. There has been a lot of more reasonable critique. More reasonable critique has been levied against Hasan over and over and over and over again. But he dismisses that critique, or he calls the people that critique him psychopaths. Those are the only two things that he goes to. He either ignores all criticism, or he calls people that criticize him psychopaths. The biggest criticism that is levied against him is not that he doesn't give enough hopium, is that he does not know what he's talking about. As evidenced in this very video when he says that Ukraine should have taken that deal in 2022. Where Ukraine would have completely demilitarized, the Ukraine would have just left itself completely open to future invasion. No aid from the West, no getting into any sort of alliances, neutrality, quote unquote, which again means being in the sphere of influence of the Russian Federation. Complete ridiculousness.
Also, saying that the Russian economy is crumbling right now when the strikes on Iran has literally given Russia virtually, like, we gave Russia sanctions relief. What are you talking about?
Yes, I'm sure that Hasan Piker in 2022, 2023, and 2024 analyzed and predicted that Trump would win the election, that Trump would become Russia's ally, and that Trump would start the war in Iran in 2026. And he predicted that the oil prices would skyrocket. Yes, that was all part of Hassan's brilliant foresight analysis. Fuck off. Fuck off.
The price of the oil barrel goes up. And who benefits from that? Russia benefits from that.
Also, how about the recent attack on Russia's oil infrastructure, which actually dealt a significant blow to it? Oh yeah, Hasan knows nothing about it because Hasan knows nothing about this war. Hasan is Professor Zhang. Yeah. Hasan's a joke. I just don't know how anybody can treat him seriously when he says stuff like this. I have no clue how anybody can treat him seriously when he does crap like this. I certainly cannot. He used predictive history. Yeah, I know. Isn't that amazing? What an amazing left-wing pundit.
What the fuck? They don't rely on the Strait of Hormuz.
So that's Hasan. I don't think I'll say anything more. Hasan is a joke. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous how many people try to defend this guy on this crap. I find this ridiculous. But you know what? Whatever. It is what it is. It is what it is, and what it is ridiculous. Very ridiculous. Is there anything else that I need to add on this? Do you have any questions? I guess I'll ask on Hasan Piker's brilliant analysis. Any questions? Oh, J.K. Rowling tweeted on the whole. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. J.K. Rowling still spreads the lie that this women boxers were trans. I'm gonna do the J.K. Rowling thing on the other channel. No questions on Hasan Piker? I already did Hasan Piker on here, and I considered the Hasan Piker crap to be Lucy has a channel worthy. Okay, I guess we've done all the political topics that we in for today. So plan is I'm gonna end stream now. I'm gonna take a little bit of a break, and then I'm gonna jump on and do some slop and gaming because we do have slop. How does that sound? And by break, I mean I'm going to be making timestamps for fake like Kyle Parker or something. How does that sound? How does that sound? Does that sound good? No, I'm not gonna nap. Hasan Piker has agitated me too much to nap. I'm actually not sleepy. All right. Share my same frustration with Yanis. My same thing with Yanis, Paro, Pakis. Well, you know, we all have our frustrations. I was able to vocalize mine. We'll see. Let's see if this segment will gain me the ire of people on my channel. All right. So I'm gonna end now, and then I'm gonna be back on the Lucy Haze channel to do some slot. We're gonna be discussing J.K. Rowling on that one, I guess, because she's already dancing because of the whole Olympic thing. So yeah, we've talked. I've done a segment today on this channel, just today on this stream. I've talked about how trans women are being banned from the Olympics because all trans issues are actually only about trans women, of course. Oh, God. Also, today is the day that I am upgrading my laptop. So I'll have a better gaming laptop, which means that for Lucy Haze, I'll be able to play games more fluently, and I'm going to be able to play newer games, and I'm going to be able to finish Expedition on stream because I will be playing Expedition in normal amounts of frames per second instead of 5 frames per second. Isn't that nice? That's nice, isn't it? Okay, so I'll be back. I'll be back, and I don't know. I'll be back, and as long as it will take me to write down the timestamps for Fake Alec Cal Parker for today's stream. Could have just stopped at my prediction was wrong. Everything else is just word salad. Get a grip, you're in some great geopolitical mind. You are a virus with a cult following of other viruses. Oh God.
Like, yes, my initial prediction.
Okay, enough. I'm so mad at Hasan Piker. All right, I'll see you. Okay, I'll see you soon. Peace.